There are Real Housewives scandals, and then there is the Tom Girardi and Erika Jayne situation, which is not a scandal in the franchise sense of that word. It is not a cheating rumor or a misrepresented net worth or a business venture that failed publicly. What it is, what the criminal trial, the federal conviction, the bankruptcy proceedings, and the ongoing civil lawsuit have confirmed and documented court-verified detail is the story of the most consequential fraud in the history of American reality television. A fraud that was funded by stolen money, displayed to millions of viewers as glamour, and that victimized people whose names and circumstances are specific and devastating. To understand the full scope of it, you have to start with who Tom Girardi was before Erika Jayne. Thomas Vincent Girardi had been practicing law in Los Angeles since 1964. He grew up in the city, attended Loyola, got his law degree, and spent the next 5 decades building a reputation as one of the most formidable personal injury attorneys in the country. He was the first attorney in California to win a $1 million plus medical malpractice award in 1970 at a time when that number was almost inconceivable. He represented the victims of the Pacific gas and electric toxic groundwater contamination case in Hinckley, California, which resulted in a $333 million settlement. The case that inspired the 2000 Oscar-winning film Erin Brockovich. Girardi is thanked in the credits of that film. He served as an advisor to the filmmakers. He was the first trial lawyer appointed to the California Judicial Council. He was inducted into the Trial Lawyer Hall of Fame. He was, by any measure visible to the outside world, a giant of the legal profession who had devoted his career to fighting powerful corporations on behalf of ordinary people. He was doing this at the same time he was stealing from the ordinary people he represented. The fraud, as established by the federal government and proven at trial in August 2024, began no later than October 2010 and continued through late 2020, a full decade. It, snorts, operated as a Ponzi scheme in the most precise legal meaning of that term. Girardi took money from new client settlements to pay previous clients whose funds he had already stolen, perpetuating the cycle while using the surplus for himself, for his firm's operating expenses, and for the lifestyle he and Erika Jayne displayed on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada described his conduct at the post-verdict press conference with a phrase that became the defining summary of the entire case. Tom Girardi was a Robin Hood in reverse, stealing from the people he claimed to be fighting for to fund a Hollywood lifestyle for himself and his wife. The clients he stole from were not abstractions. They were documented human beings who had come to him at the worst moments of their lives because of his reputation as someone who fought for people like them. Joe Rugama was burned over most of his body when a PG&E gas line exploded. His girlfriend was killed in the same explosion. Girardi settled his case for $53 million. He told Rui Gomez the settlement was $7.25 million, keeping the difference. He then delayed paying even that reduced amount through a pattern of manufactured excuses spanning years. Judy Selberg's husband was killed in a boating accident. Josefina Hernandez was injured by a defective medical device. Erika Saldana's 1-year-old baby was severely injured in a crash with a drunk driver. In each case, Girardi received settlement funds that were legally required to be held in trust for his clients and transferred them instead into accounts that funded his firm's expenses, other clients' delayed payments, and his own lifestyle. The victims of the Lion Air crash took on a different moral dimension because of how Girardi communicated with them. All 189 people aboard Lion Air Flight 610 perished when the Boeing 737 MAX 8 crashed into the Java Sea moments after takeoff in October 2018. 5 families of victims retained Girardi keys to pursue their wrongful death claims against Boeing. The firm eventually won a combined settlement of $12.55 million for these 5 families. Rather than distributing their full shares, Girardi and 2 colleagues kept more than $3 million. When the families pressed for their money, Girardi sent letters. One to a client who was asking where their payment was said, "I think you're going to love me in 30 days." He sent it when he had no intention of paying. He was buying time. In May 2020, He told four of the families there were serious issues he had been working to resolve and that he would need 2 more weeks. He was lying. The families who had lost loved ones in a plane crash and had retained the celebrated champion of justice to pursue accountability were being told fairy tales, while their settlement funds were being used for someone else's purposes. A federal investigation conducted by the State Bar of California in February 2023 found that bar employees had accepted gifts, travel, meals, and other items of value from Girardi Keys over the course of 4 decades, influencing the bar to suppress complaints against the firm. During those 40 years, the State Bar received 205 complaints against Tom Girardi alleging misappropriation of settlement funds, client abandonment, and other serious ethical violations. Across all 205 complaints, the bar took no disciplinary action against him, not once. The person who was building his identity as a champion of justice had political connections so robust, he donated millions to California Democratic politicians, had relationships with sitting judges, and had cultivated the bar itself that the complaints simply disappeared. He was disbarred in June 2022 after his firm had already collapsed. The protection lasted 40 years. It ended only when a bankruptcy filing and a documentary made it impossible to contain any further. Erika Jayne's place in this story is the question that has defined the case since it became public. She arrived on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in Season 6 in 2015 as a cast member whose lifestyle was visibly extraordinary, even by the show's elevated standards. She had a full glam squad that she described as working for her company, EJ Global. She had backup dancers. She had a production budget for music videos. She had a custom chapel in her Pasadena home, a wardrobe of outfits that cost thousands of dollars per performance, and a husband who was 33 years older than her and who appeared occasionally in episodes looking like exactly what he was. A very wealthy, very powerful older man who gave his younger wife whatever she asked for. The trustee appointed to manage Girardi Keys' bankruptcy has documented what EJ Global actually was. Over a 12-year period from 2008 through 2020, Girardi's law firm transferred $25,592,261.26 to Erika Jayne's company. The court documents are specific about how that number breaks down. Over $14 million in American Express charges made directly by Erika on a card issued to her and an additional $11 million in vendor payments for her benefit. The trustee's filing stated plainly, the payments by Girardi's law firm were exclusively for the benefit of Jayne and her company. The expenses consist largely of expenses to promote Erika personally. The glam squad, the costumes, the music videos, the private jet travel, the jewelry, the luxury lifestyle that viewers watched on television every Tuesday night was being funded in whole or in substantial part by stolen client money. Erika has maintained throughout every proceeding that she had no knowledge of any wrongdoing. Her attorney Evan Borges has argued that she was an entertainer who never worked at Girardi's law firm and that it is undisputed that Erika never received even a penny from the transactions at issue. That last phrase requires some unpacking because it is technically accurate in a narrow sense. The money flowed from the law firm to her company, not directly to her personally, while simultaneously describing a situation in which she was the sole beneficiary of funds that paid for every aspect of her life and career. The trustee's response to the innocent spouse defense has been equally specific. Erika either signed or authorized every charge made to the relevant American Express accounts and approved all vendor payments, knowing that she had no ability to pay for the charges and invoices. The trustee classified her as an insider under bankruptcy law, which carries its own legal meaning about the standard of knowledge required. The trial that was supposed to resolve this question began February 10, 2026, was delayed, and is now scheduled for May 19, 2026, with the court explicitly stating no further continuances will be granted. The trustee's attorney Ronald Richards has been documenting the delay pattern publicly for years. In July 2025, he described Erika's legal strategy as avoid, delay, and obfuscate. In December 2025, on Christmas Eve, he posted that settlement talks had broken down completely and wrote, "Erika has little options. Panic setting in." In February 2026, he announced she had obtained one final delay, describing her as desperately trying to hold off the trial. The trial is a civil proceeding, not a criminal one. Erika has not been charged with any crime. The worst outcome is a court order requiring her to repay the $25 million. But that number, if ordered, would represent an obligation against someone whose stated income and assets are considerably smaller than what they were when the lifestyle was being filmed. There is a second lawsuit that has received less attention, but that contains its own remarkable allegations. Fashion designer Christopher Sila of the company Marco Marco, which created elaborate custom costumes for Erika's performances, sued her for $18 million. He alleges that Erika disputed approximately $934,000 in legitimate charges to her American Express card, claiming they were fraudulent, and then, with Tom Girardi's alleged involvement, used his connections with 3 Secret Service agents to have Sila criminally investigated and charged with credit card fraud. The criminal charges against Sila were dismissed in September 2021. He then filed his civil suit, claiming the false prosecution had destroyed his business, caused the loss of clients and employees, and caused serious personal harm. A federal court denied Erika's motion to dismiss in February 2024. The Ninth Circuit ruled in October 2025 that she could not delay the trial further through appeals. That case is also moving toward a jury. Tom Girardi was found guilty by a federal jury in Los Angeles on August 27, 2024, on 4 counts of wire fraud. He was 85 years old at the time of conviction. His defense throughout the trial was that his chief financial officer, Christopher Kaiman, had run the financial scheme without his knowledge or direction. The jury did not accept this defense. At sentencing on June 3, 2025, U.S. District Judge Josephine Staton determined that the Federal Bureau of Prisons could adequately house him despite his dementia diagnosis. He was sentenced to 87 months, 7 years and 3 months in federal prison. He was 86 years old at sentencing. He was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution and a $35,000 fine. He reported to federal custody in July 2025. His projected release date places him in his early 90s. At the sentencing hearing, in an unexpected moment, Girardi himself took the stand. He told the court he lived in Pasadena. He told his attorney that after the hearing, he was going to go to his law firm. The law firm had been closed for at least 5 years and was in bankruptcy proceedings. He demonstrated both confusion about the past and awareness of his current surroundings. Aware enough, the judge noted, to feel embarrassment when his trousers slipped slightly as he left the witness stand and to pull them back up. The judge cited this moment as evidence that he retained self-awareness and could not claim complete loss of reality. When Erika was told Tom had been sentenced, she was in London preparing for a performance at the Coco Club. She told Billy Bush she was emotionally distraught, but that she had to let go and move on. She gave an interview to Vogue UK, published on the same day as the sentencing, that discussed picking herself up after dark times. At the season 15 reunion of Rob, she was asked what her first question to Tom would be if she could ask him anything. She said, "Why? Why did you throw me out like that?" She said she had walked on ice a lot with Tom. She said she had been in the Tom Girardi influence. She confirmed she was swimming under all of these lawsuits. She also, in a detail that passed quickly in the reunion, disclosed that there was another relationship in which she had experienced something she described as abuse, separate from the shame she carried about Tom, and said it brought up a lot of other shame. What the record of this case documents with more precision and more human cost than almost any other story the Real Housewives franchise has generated is the specific way in which money and image, and television and legal prestige were used simultaneously to build a performance of success so elaborate and so convincing that it sustained itself for 20 years. The Aaron Brockovich connection was part of the machinery. The Trial Lawyer Hall of Fame was part of the machinery. The Rob lifestyle was part of the machinery. Every element of the public identity, his and eventually hers, was a mechanism for maintaining the confidence of clients who would otherwise have been asking where their money was. A burn victim who lost most of his skin and his girlfriend and was told his $53 million settlement was $7.25 million. Families of 189 people killed in a plane crash receiving letters about how the lawyer had been flying back and forth trying to resolve things and needed 2 more weeks. A woman whose husband was killed in a boating accident. A baby who died. The clients who carried these losses to Tom Girardi because of who they believed he was. The real question that the May 2026 trial will attempt to answer is not whether money was stolen. That was established at the criminal trial. It is what the person whose name that money was spent on knew and when she knew it, and whether knowing matters under the specific legal framework being applied. The trustee's position is that it does not need to matter because fraudulent conveyance law does not require knowledge, only benefit. Erika's position is that benefit without knowledge is not culpability. Both of those positions have legal support. The May 19th trial will tell us which one a jury finds more compelling. What is already established in court records, in criminal conviction, in bankruptcy filings that list the specific dollar amounts transferred to specific accounts on specific dates, is that the most expensive performance in the history of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was paid for with money that belonged to people who needed it, and that those people waited years for explanations that were always lies, while the lifestyle they were inadvertently funding appeared on national television every Tuesday night. A burn victim told his $53 million settlement was $7.25 million. Plane crash widow sent letters about 2 more weeks. A jury conviction. 87 months in federal prison at age 86. And a $25 million civil trial still to come in May 2026. The most documented financial fraud in the history of this franchise. Subscribe for more.